Alright, welcome to the 9.4.0 public test build patch notes, where we are getting a second chapter for the Stranger Things additions. And, like before, this one is concluding both a killer and 2 survivors. However, this time this one will not come with a new map. The killer, of course, being known as the First, or slash Vecna, if you have seen the show, and our brand 2 new survivors are 11 and Dustin. But not only that, we are actually getting 2 additional ones in the form of legendary skins for Eddie and Robin. So, I'm just going to say right now this is going to be a relatively short video compared to most because the patch notes aren't actually that grand. There are actually pretty much no balance changes happening whatsoever in this patch other than the new additions happening. Of course, everything here is subject to change once they actually go fully live in the final patch release, but as for now, let's get right into it. There isn't much to really cover. Alright, so getting right into it, we're going to be talking about the brand new killer, the First. So starting off with the special ability, Vine Attack. You can press and hold the power button to charge a Vine Attack, and when it's being charged, you can press the attack button to activate it, creating a small area of effect on the ground. This effect is able to be controlled by your very position similar to other killers, and you can angle it up and down, through walls, and through floors, depending on what kind of angling you have for your camera. It is a small detonation delay after you trigger the ability. While charging it, you move ever so slightly slower, and you get a slight movement penalty after activating it regardless whether you hit somebody or not. It also has an incredibly short cooldown as well, so you are able to use it very frequently. Now, any survivors caught within the area of a Vine Attack will earn 1 World Breaker token. World Breaker tokens are shown on the little icons around the players on the side of the screen. They can have a maximum of up to 4. Anytime any player reaches 2 or 4, or if they are already at the maximum of 4 and hit with another one, World Breaker mode will begin. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about World Breaker mode later on, but for now on small details, as long as World Breaker mode is active, this Vine Attack will now, instead of applying World Breaker tokens, it will instead do a damage state, meaning you can injure and down survivors from a distance. This ability already seems pretty strong due to the fact that there's very little punishment for missing, on top of the fact that you actually get very quick cooldowns. So you can spam it very frequently if you get good spatial intuition and knowing how survivors move, on top of using aura reading perks. Next up is another special ability, one that is more traversal based, which is the Upside Down and the Undergate. The killer can enter the Upside Down to navigate the map quickly by tapping the ability button. While you are in the Upside Down, the killer has the Undetectable status effect, and move at around at a higher speed. During this form, you're able to traverse through windows and pallets without any problems. And also, you're able to activate the Undergate attack to return to the map. Doing so will create a large area of effect on the ground, slowing your movement speed dramatically, and on top of that, the area of effect will grow over time. Once it is reached full, you will emerge from the ground. Any survivors caught within this radius will gain 2 World Breaker tokens instantaneously. And, similar to the Vine Attack, if World Breaker mode is currently active, this instead will do a damage state. This ability has a pretty lengthy cooldown, so it's meant to be used if you really want to get around and catch up to certain spots. I would say it's best used after you hook somebody, or if you want to go get across the map pretty quickly and start off a good chase. Due to its long duration to actually trigger the effect, it is pretty easy for survivors to get away, so that's why it's encouraged that you mind game them a little bit to try to panic them to go into the correct direction of your area of effect. So now, we're going to be moving on to the World Breaker effect and the Grandfather Clocks. Once a survivor has gained either 2 or 4 tokens for their World Breaker status effect, or if they are already at 4 and are hit with another one of your abilities, this will trigger the World Breaker timer. Like mentioned before, while World Breaker is active, your Vine Attack and Undergate attacks will do damage instead of adding tokens. And, for this duration, there are 4 Grandfather Clocks that are active around the map during World Breaker. These are served as a counter ability to get the First out of his World Breaker mode so that they can remain safe for at least a little while. So, World Breaker has a predetermined amount of time to stay active, and it's based on the amount of survivors alive. I do not have the numbers for this, but just know that the less people there are, the less time that World Breaker will remain active. As for the Grandfather Clocks, while World Breaker mode is active, any survivors will see the one Grandfather Clock that is closest to them at the current time. Any survivors that go up towards the clocks will be able to listen to music so that they can increase the speed at which that the World Breaker mode diminishes. However, they can only diminish it so much before reaching a limit. The first 3/4 of the World Breaker timer are able to be reduced at a faster speed using the clocks. However, the final quarter is a forced fixed duration that cannot be sped up. This is set in place so that way the First has a certain amount of time to actually use their abilities, even if they are counteracted with the Grandfather Clocks, because if they didn't have a limitation, then they would be able to end his ability rather quickly. So this is kind of like a safety measure, so that way it's reduced duration, but you can still get value. So, as for other additional things that are not spoken about in the ability, the first actually has a quick Mori animation, similar to how Onryo and Pyramid Head have alternative ways to Mori people at different points of time under certain circumstances. For the first, his is reliant on having a survivor that is on their final hook, meaning that if they were hooked on the next one, they would die immediately, and also if they have 4 World Breaker tokens. It's important to remind you that World Breaker tokens cannot be removed in any form. Once you have gained one, it is there permanently. So, once a survivor is on their final hook and they have 4 World Breaker tokens, if you hit them either with your Vine attack or your Undergate attack, and this attack would normally put them into the dying state, they instead will levitate into the air, being able to be interacted with using Mindbreaker. This will initiate a quick Mori animation to kill them off quickly, so that way you're able to get back into the fight a lot more sooner.
Time for your suffering to end.
If you refuse to do this, and you instead leave them there for a certain amount of duration, I believe about 5 to 10 seconds, they will instead drop to the ground and enter the dying state. Now, since his abilities do have some amount of AoE, there is a potential for cluttering people, especially when it comes to people that are on hooks, so there is a countermeasure put in place for this. Any of your abilities, whether it's your Vine attack or your Undergate attack, that are triggered within a certain radius of a hooked survivor, and especially this lingers for a certain amount of time after a hooked survivor gets off of a hook, they will instead take much longer to activate. For the Vine attack, it will instead place a location of where you activate your Vine attack on the ground, and will instead activate at a much later duration. It can still interact with survivors, but this should give them enough time to move away. As for the Undergate attack, it is pretty much the same. It essentially triples the duration it takes for your Undergate attack to finish if you activate it while in the range of any hooked survivors or recently unhooked survivors. Given how much AoE it has, it makes sense that for this one that you'd get more time to get away from it, as you could easily hit numerous people immediately after they get off the hook. And finally, if you are curious to see his Mori, I'll show you right here. Alright, so now moving on to the 3 new killer perks that come along with the first. Coming up first, we have a really strong perk called Turn Back the Clock. After hooking a survivor for the next 40, 50, or 60 seconds, pressing ability button 1 will make the target generator that you are facing within 20 meters explode, lose 10% progress, and start regressing. This one is especially strong. Think of it as like a slightly lesser Pop Goes the Weasel, but you could initiate it from a distance. This can be used for either stopping people from progressing it when it's almost done, or just to save you time from kicking the generator on your own and allow you to move on much more quickly. After that, we have Secret Project. When a totem is blessed or cleansed, it'll block a random unblocked generator for 20, 25, or 30 seconds. Now the second half is what the real important part of this perk is that has a lot of synergy for using with other perks. When one or more generators becomes blocked, you will gain the undetectable status effect for 30 seconds. There's a lot of possibilities to be using this with other perks, such as Dead Man Switch, Deadlock, Corrupt Intervention, many possibilities here. After that, we have Hex Hivemind. The first time any survivor is hooked, a Dull Totem will become a Hex Totem. For the duration of the Hex Totem standing, generators are highlighted and their intensity of their auras are revealed by their repair progress. Think of it as similar to how some killers have an add-on that would typically do this, like how Wraith would be able to see this kind of ability while he's cloaked, with using an iridescent add-on. And on top of that, when one generator remains, all remaining generators explode and lose 6, 8, or 10 progress and start regressing, and then the Hex Totem will become dull. Alright, so now moving on to this brand new survivor perks as well as the survivors themselves. We are starting off with Dustin Henderson. First perk we're talking about is Bada Bada Boom. This one is essentially the identical window variant of Chemtrap. After completing 20% worth of repairs, press active ability 1 next to a window to trap it for 40, 50, and 60 seconds. The trap triggers when a killer performs a vault on that window and it will inflict him with 50% hindered for 6 seconds. Also, for some unknown reason, the trigger distance for applying the trap to a window is pretty far and you can actually vacuum yourself towards the window. Probably a bug, but just a little note. After that, we have Change of Plan. You will start with 2 tokens. While inside of a locker and holding a non-event toolbox, press active ability button 2 to spend 1 token and transform your toolbox into a medkit of the same rarity with a random add-on of the same rarity. The medkit will also have 80, 90, or 100% of its charges. This one's actually a pretty interesting perk. It's actually more encouraging you to start the game with a toolbox, so you can actually have some early gen progression, and if you're injured later on, you can turn it into a medkit if you want to get yourself a self-heal. Because it is not reliant on the toolbox being empty or not, it will have the medkit being at its charges. After that, we have Teamwork Full Circuit. For each other survivor repairing a generator with you, the size of the good skill check zone is increased by 15, 20, and 25%. In addition to this, while repairing with at least one other survivor, your repair speed is 5% faster. Alright, now moving on to the new survivor 11. We're starting off with a new perk, Extrasensory Perception. After crouching for 4 seconds, you see auras in an expanding radius up to a maximum of 44 meters, and you also gain the Elusive and the Oblivious status effect. When you stop crouching, or after it has been active for 11 seconds, this perk enters a 60, 50, and 40 second cooldown. This perk allows you to see pretty much anything physically possible in the radius, such as the killer, pallets, vaults, totems, and even the hatch itself. This one seems like it does a little bit too much, especially when you compare it to the perk Still Sight, where it has so much more limitations towards it. After that, we have We See You. When the killer reveals your aura, gain 1 token. When you have 4 tokens, spend all tokens, and you and other survivors will see the killer's aura for 10, 12.5, and 15 seconds, and this perk also has a 10-second cooldown between gaining tokens. Finally, we have Teamwork Soft Spoken. For each other survivor repairing a generator with you, the range at which the generator repair noise is heard is reduced by 15, 20, and 25%. And like the other Teamwork perk, while repairing with at least one other survivor, you repair 5% faster. Alright, that does it for the 9.4.0 patch notes for the public test build on Dead by Daylight. Honestly, really looking forward to this chapter coming out. There's a couple of things that are questionable for both sides, like the Bada Bada Boom perk is probably going to be a little bit concerning for a lot of killers depending on what ones you're playing, but also Turn Back the Clock, that perk is more than likely going to get adjusted. But anyways, yeah, it's a bit of a shorter video this time around because it's mostly just explaining the things that are being added. There are no balance changes or whatever have you. There are, however, a lot of balance changes for the 2v8 game mode, as well as the addition of Chucky coming into the game mode now. There were a lot of adjustments for certain classes and certain killers, so if you guys really want me to make a patch note video on that, I can probably try my hand at that just for fun, but for now this one is focusing on the main stuff coming to the main game. So, without dragging this out too long, once again, hope you guys enjoyed this kind of video. I like to try to put my effort into these a little bit more. I won't lie, this one was a little bit more simple, but I feel like that's kind of all it really called for. Anyway, as always, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one.